Hey everyone, Dr. Chems here, and I am incredibly thrilled to welcome you to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most powerful and, frankly, magical concepts in all of statistics, the Central Limit Theorem. If you've ever wondered how mathematicians manage to find perfect order hidden inside absolute chaos, well, you are in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Think about this core mystery for a second. How can a poll of just 1,000 people accurately describe a country of hundreds of millions? How can we possibly trust such small, limited samples to make sense of vast, messy, and totally lopsided populations? It sounds impossible, right? But the answer lies in the invisible mathematical engine we're exploring today. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer, taking us from mystery to mastery. 1. The bell curve mystery. 2. Continuous random variables. 3. The central limit theorem. 4. The mechanics of averages. 5. The backbone of statistics. And 6. Real-world applications. All right, kicking things off with section 1, the bell curve mystery. Why do so many random things naturally cluster around an average? You know how certain things in life, like human height, manufacturing errors, or even standardized test scores, just naturally tend to cluster around an average? Whenever a value is the result of many minor additive effects, their collective impact almost always produces a beautiful, symmetrical shape centered around a mean. This is governed by the empirical rule. About 68% of values fall within one standard deviation of the mean, 95% within two, and 99.7% within three. It's like this incredible built-in rhythm of nature. Moving right along to section 2, continuous random variables. This is the mathematical groundwork for measuring probability. When we think about probability, we often start with discrete chunks, literally adding up the areas of individual distinct blocks, like you might remember from basic algebra. But what happens when we look at something continuous, like time or exact weight? A continuous random variable has an infinite set of potential values, so we can't just count chunky blocks anymore. Instead, we have to look at the smooth area under a continuous curve using an integral to find the probability of a value falling within a certain range. It's the essential mathematical bridge that gets us from chunky, distinct probabilities to the smooth distributions we need. Which brings us to section 3, the central limit theorem itself. Some folks in academia affectionately call this the piece of cake theorem. You are about to see exactly why it gets that nickname. The central limit theorem basically states that as your sample size grows, the distribution of your sample means gets closer and closer to a normal distribution. And here is the absolute kicker. This happens regardless of what the original population looks like. I really want you to let that sink in. The original data can be completely lopsided, flat, bimodal, or just a chaotic mess of random spikes. But if you take enough samples and average them out, those averages will magically form a perfect symmetrical bell curve. It absolutely blows my mind every time. Let's actually walk step by step through how this literal process of sampling works. Step 1. Start with literally any population. Let's say household income, which is usually heavily skewed right because of a few billionaires throwing off the curve. Step 2. Draw a random sample and average it. Step 3. Repeat that exact process over and over, thousands of times. Step 4. Just sit back and watch those averages form a bell curve. Why does this happen? Because the extreme highs and extreme lows in your different samples basically cancel each other out. The very act of averaging is exactly what smooths away the skew. It forces the data pile to get narrower and closer to a smooth, normal curve. When you plot this out, it visually proves the concept so perfectly. Even if we start with something completely unnormal, repeatedly pulling those sample means and stacking them up creates a beautiful, highly symmetric probability histogram. The shape just smoothly approaches a normal distribution, exactly like the theorem promises. Let's look under the hood in section 4, the mechanics of averages. So what is the exact formula making this magic happen? It all comes down to the standard error. The standard deviation of the sample mean is equal to the population standard deviation divided by the square root of n, which is your sample size. Think about the math here for a second. As your sample size n gets larger and larger, that denominator grows, which means the overall variance shrinks. This mathematical mechanism literally forces those sample averages to land much tighter, right around the true population mean. Now, if you've studied stats, you've probably heard the famous rule of thumb that a sample size of 30 is enough for the central limit theorem to kick in. And for many moderately non-normal populations, that's totally true. But here's a really fascinating detail. Recent Monte Carlo simulations ran tests on highly skewed data. They found that to truly achieve a reliable normal distribution for that super weird data, you might actually need a sample size closer to 200. So 30 is a great default guideline, for sure. But the weirder the data, the larger the sample you're going to need. Before we move on, I want to clear up a massive misconception that trips up a lot of folks in academia. It is super easy to confuse the law of large numbers with the Central Limit Theorem. The law of large numbers tells us that as your sample grows, the sample mean converges to the population mean, so it tells you where the target is. The Central Limit Theorem does something entirely different. It describes the shape and spread of those sample means, proving they form that normal bell curve with a specific standard error. Simply put, one finds the bullseye and the other describes the shape of the cluster hitting it. All right, Section 5, the backbone of statistics. Mathematician George Polya actually coined the term Central Limit Theorem back in 1920. And he used the word central for a very good reason. It is the absolute foundation of inferential statistics. This theorem isn't just some abstract curiosity. It provides massive inferential power. It enables parametric tests like t-tests and ANOVA, which scientists completely rely on to detect true effects in their data. It validates the 95% confidence intervals used by researchers to estimate parameters. And it powers hypothesis testing by letting us calculate trustworthy p-values. Literally, without the Central Limit Theorem, the entire framework we use to infer truths about a giant population from a tiny sample just would not function. Which leads us to our final part, Section 6, Real-World Applications. Let's see how this invisible law brings reality into focus. This plays out across almost every major industry. In finance, analysts use the Central Limit Theorem to assess portfolio risks. They can assume a normal distribution of average returns, even if the daily stock markets are acting wildly chaotic. In manufacturing, pharmaceutical companies sample tablet weights to verify quality, which saves them from having to weigh every single pill on the assembly line. In the social sciences, it's exactly how survey researchers can accurately gauge national voter preferences from just a small sample of people. And in environmental science, it helps monitor pollutant concentrations accurately. This math saves time, it saves money, and it makes modern research possible. Ultimately, the Central Limit Theorem proves something deeply profound. No matter how skewed, lopsided, or purely chaotic individual data points are, nature has a built-in mathematical mechanism to find symmetry and order through averages. It really makes you wonder, if this profound invisible law is operating behind the scenes of every poll, every financial model, and every scientific study, what other invisible mathematical patterns are hiding in plain sight in our universe? Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Chem, on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.